So just so we all understand each other, after stealing admittedly millions of dollars from his clients and his law partners, Alex Murdaugh enters into a plea agreement with the federal government where he agrees, number one, to give the government truthful cooperation about the money, and number two, not to appeal whatever sentence he receives. Immediately, he starts lying to the government, failing their polygraphs, and right after he receives his sentence, he immediately files an appeal. This guy. What's good, people? To give you some background, a little refresher, after he was convicted of the double homicide murders of his son and his wife, Alex Murdaugh was prosecuted for federal financial crimes in federal court. Once he was prosecuted, he entered into a plea agreement with the government where he admitted to stealing over $10 million from his clients and his law firm over a number of years. And when he pled guilty, he entered into what's called a plea agreement with the government. Now, when you have a plea agreement, both sides typically have something to gain from the agreement, so they both get some benefit of the bargain. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why would the government enter into a plea agreement with Alex Murdaugh? It was a slam dunk case. I mean, they had him, he admitted it, he had no defense. Why bother giving him a plea agreement? You need to keep in mind that of the $10 million Alex Murdaugh stole, a lot of it could not be accounted for. It wasn't in his bank accounts. He actually owed money, was behind on some bills. They didn't find any cash. The government knew that money was somewhere. They wanted to try to locate that money so they could give it back to the victims. Additionally, the government knew that Murdaugh had to have help. Okay, he wasn't spending all that money on oxycodone despite what his lawyers would love to have you believe. He had to have somebody helping him dispose of that money, hide it, launder it, something. So additionally, what the government would gain is the identity of the person or persons that helped him hide the money, so they could be prosecuted as well. And the only way they can get that information is if Murdaugh agreed to sit down with them and cooperate and be truthful, give them details, dates, locations, and names they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So what did Murdaugh get from the deal? What Murdaugh got was an agreement by the state, or the government rather, that whatever sentence he received for the financial crimes, the government recommend the sentence run concurrent with the sentence he was serving for the murders. Now you're probably thinking, what difference does that make? He's serving a life sentence, so how does that benefit him? Well, there's always a possibility that the murder would come back on appeal. He knew he was going to appeal it. There's always a chance it would come back. He might get convicted of a lesser offense, maybe lying to law enforcement, misprision of felony, something like that. In which case, if that does happen, it'd be very significant to serve less time. Now, there are a lot of different terms in a federal plea agreement, but I want to talk about a couple that are important in this case specifically. One is if a defendant does not uphold his end of the bargain, he's not honest with the government, he's not truthful, he doesn't cooperate, then all the obligations by the government are null and void, and they're no longer required to do anything they agreed to do for the defendant in exchange for the plea. So by Alex Murdaugh failing the polygraph and lying to the FBI, the government was not obligated to make any kind of recommendation to the court for concurrent time. Another standard term in a federal plea agreement is the defendant agrees to give up his right to appeal whatever sentence he receives, even if he gets more time than he expected to get. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of federal criminal defense. Even when a defendant pleads guilty with or without a plea agreement, one of the many things a judge advises the defendant is, even if he doesn't like his sentence, even if he gets more time than his lawyers told him he was going to get, or the government told him he was going to get, even if he gets more time than he anticipates, that is not a legitimate ground to withdraw his guilty plea. Now let's talk about the sentence a little bit. Now, at the time of sentencing, the government recommended the judge sentence Murdaugh to a term of 30 years in prison. However, the judge didn't think that was enough. At the hearing for his sentence, the judge actually noted that Murdaugh stole from over 27 clients, some children, some widows, some paraplegics, and he just decided 30 years was not enough and actually gave him 40 years, which is 10 years more than the government recommended. So, going back, remember that part of the plea agreement Alex Murdaugh signed where he said he would not appeal whatever sentence the judge gave him? Well, as you can imagine, Murdaugh said, "To hell with that. I don't care what I said." And he immediately appealed that sentence, saying it was cruel and unusual punishment because at his age, a sentence that long would mean he would basically die in prison and was serving a life sentence. Now, the chances for success on the merits of that appeal, I gotta call it like I see it. That appeal is frivolous and has absolutely no merit. His lawyers are basically saying because of Alex Murdaugh's age, the sentence is too long since he'll probably never get out of prison. Well, that's how it goes for any defendant in any criminal case. I guess arguably he should have committed the crimes when he was 35, and maybe he would have got out when he was in his 50s or his 60s, but that's not the case. And what's even more asinine is in their brief, his defense lawyers say that the life expectancy for Alex Murdaugh is about 24 and a half years. But the thing is, even by their own logic, if he'd gotten the 30 years, he would still die in prison. So what difference does the 40 years make? So although I'm certain he will lose this appeal, read my lips, mark my words, Alex Murdaugh will continue to file appeals as long as he can find the lawyer to file one. And mark my words, once he can no longer find a lawyer to file these appeals on his behalf, I can guarantee you he's the kind of guy that's going to be filing these appeals from prison all by himself, handwriting them on pieces of paper and filing them with the court. Trust me, I've had clients like that. I've seen it. This guy is one of those. So, do you think Alex Murdaugh got too much time for the financial crimes? Do me a favor. Post your comments and call it like you see it. That's it. What's good, people? Suits, Law and Order, LA Law, Matlock, Perry Mason. I think it'd be fun to do a podcast talking about our favorite all-time lawyer TV shows. What we like, what we don't like, what's realistic, what's not realistic, and really just go down the rabbit hole. I'll even share which lawyer TV show made the difference in me wanting to be a lawyer. Do me a favor, post your comments and tell me your favorite lawyer TV shows so we can talk about them too. That's it.